Have you ever wondered what pivotal moment in history changed the course of the American Civil War? Let's journey back in time to the summer of 1863. The air was heavy, not just with the stifling heat, but also with the weight of a nation divided. The United States was in the throes of a brutal civil war, a conflict that wasn't just about territory, but also about the very ideals that the nation was built upon. In the South, the Confederacy, led by the indomitable General Robert E. Lee, was riding high on a wave of victories. Lee, a military genius with an iron will, was a beacon of hope for the Confederacy. His victories had given the South a sense of invincibility, but they were far from winning the war. In the North, the Union was grappling with a series of defeats. The pressure was mounting on General George G. Meade, a man known for his tactical acumen and unyielding determination. Meade was not just fighting a war, he was carrying the weight of a nation's future on his shoulders. The two armies, each a mirror image of the other's resolve and courage, were on a collision course. The destination? A sleepy little town in Pennsylvania named Gettysburg. It was not just the geographical location of Gettysburg that made it a strategic point. Its network of 10 important roads made it a vital hub for travel and communication, a prize that both sides coveted. As the armies marched towards Gettysburg, the air crackled with anticipation. Soldiers hardened by battle and civilians caught in the crossfire could only wonder what the next days would bring. Would it be a decisive victory for the Confederacy, cementing their place in history? Or would it be a turning point for the Union, a chance to turn the tide in their favor? Every step taken, every order given, every strategy planned was leading up to a clash that would echo through the annals of history. The Battle of Gettysburg was not just about a fight for territory. It was a battle for the soul of a nation, a struggle to define what America stood for. And so, the stage was set for one of the most significant battles in American history. On July 1st, 1863, the quiet town of Gettysburg was about to become the epicenter of a national conflict. As dawn broke that day, Confederate forces under the command of Generals A.P. Hill and Henry Heth strode purposefully towards Gettysburg. Their objective was simple: secure the town and its network of roads, a strategic move that would provide the Confederacy with a critical advantage. The initial skirmishes favored the Confederates, their forces overwhelming the surprised Union soldiers. It was a morning of success for the Confederacy. Their morale boosted as they pushed deeper into Union territory. But as the day progressed, the tide began to turn. The Union's 11th Corps, led by General Oliver Howard, made a strategic retreat to Cemetery Hill. This was not a sign of defeat, but rather a calculated move. Cemetery Hill was a natural fortress, its high ground providing a distinct advantage. The Union soldiers hastily set up their defenses, their eyes trained on the Confederates advancing towards them. Meanwhile, the Confederates, buoyed by their initial successes, were slow to seize upon the Union's retreat. Their delay would prove costly. As the hours ticked by, more Union forces arrived, bolstering the defensive line established on Cemetery Hill. This was the Union's game plan, a strategic retreat followed by a staunch defense. However, the Confederates were undeterred. They were confident, their spirits high after the morning's triumph. They were ready to storm Cemetery Hill to challenge the Union's defensive position. Yet, as the day drew to a close, the Confederates chose to delay their assault, a decision that would have significant repercussions on the days to come. As the sun set on the first day, the Union forces held their ground, preparing for the battle that was yet to come. This was the calm before the storm, a moment of respite before the full fury of the Battle of Gettysburg was unleashed. The first day had set the stage, the pieces were in place, and the most significant battle in the history of the American Civil War was about to begin. The second day of the battle was to be marked by a series of desperate, bloody encounters. As dawn broke, both sides braced themselves for the carnage that was to come. The Confederate forces, under the command of General Robert E. Lee, had a daring plan. They sought to outflank the Union forces, attempting to strike a devastating blow that would turn the tide of the battle in their favor. But the Union forces, led by General George Meade, were not so easily outmaneuvered. Meade, a man of keen insight and strategic acumen, anticipated Lee's move. He ordered his men to form a defensive line along a ridge known as Cemetery Hill, creating a formidable barrier that the Confederate forces would have to overcome. The fighting that day was intense and brutal. The Confederate forces launched wave after wave of attacks. Each one met with fierce resistance from the Union soldiers. The air was thick with the smoke of gunfire, the ground littered with the fallen. One of the most crucial points of the battle was the defense of Little Round Top. This small hill was a key strategic location, and its control could very well determine the outcome of the battle. The Union forces, recognizing its importance, fought tooth and nail to defend it against the relentless Confederate assault. The fighting raged on for hours, with neither side willing to give an inch. The casualty toll was staggering, with thousands of men from both sides falling in the line of duty. The fields of Gettysburg were stained with the blood of the brave soldiers who had given their all in this pivotal clash. As the sun began to set, the fighting gradually subsided. The Confederate forces, despite their best efforts, had been unable to break through the Union's defenses. They had inflicted heavy casualties, but at a great cost to their own ranks. In the face of overwhelming odds, the Union forces had managed to hold the line. The second day of the Battle of Gettysburg had come to a close, but the struggle was far from over. The stage was set for the final, decisive day of the battle, a day that would forever change the course of American history. The third day of the Battle of Gettysburg would witness one of the most infamous charges in military history. As dawn broke on July 3, 1863, the air was thick with anticipation. The Confederate Army, under the command of General Robert E. Lee, was preparing for a final decisive assault. This attack, known as Pickett's Charge, was a desperate bid to break the Union line once and for all. The stage was set with a devastating artillery bombardment, the likes of which had seldom been seen. Over 150 Confederate cannons roared to life, their thunderous noise echoing across the battlefield. The bombardment was intended to weaken the Union defenses and pave the way for the infantry advance. But amid the smoke and chaos, the effect of the bombardment was less than expected. Then came the charge. Over 12,000 Confederate soldiers surged forward, led by Major General George Pickett. It was a brave sight, men in gray and butternut charging across an open field, almost a mile in breadth, under the relentless fire of Union artillery and rifles. But bravery alone could not win the day. The Union troops, commanded by Major General George G. Meade, held their ground. They repulsed the Confederate assault with a punishing fire. The Confederate line buckled, then broke. Pickett's charge had failed. The high water mark of the Confederacy had been reached, and it was a devastating blow for the Southern cause. The field was a grim tableau of the cost of war. Bodies lay strewn across the landscape, a stark reminder of the ferocity of the battle. The Confederate Army had gambled and lost, their hopes of victory at Gettysburg dashed on the rocks of Union resolve. The Union had won the day, but at a terrible cost. The Battle of Gettysburg was far from over, and the toll it would exact on both sides was yet to be fully understood. But for now, the tide had turned in favor of the Union, and the Confederacy was left to lick its wounds and brace for the challenges yet to come. In the aftermath of the Battle of Gettysburg, both sides were left to count the cost and to consider the implications of this pivotal clash. The losses were staggering. The Union and the Confederacy had both paid a heavy price, with the casualty count reaching into the tens of thousands. The fields of Gettysburg were marked by the grim reminders of the battle, with makeshift hospitals tending to the wounded and dying. The strategic implications of this battle were significant. It was here that the tide of the Civil War began to turn. The Confederacy, under the command of General Robert E. Lee, had been pushing northward, threatening to bring the war onto Union soil. The Battle of Gettysburg brought an end to this northern advance. The Union, under the leadership of General George G. Meade, had successfully defended their territory. The impact of this battle on the morale of the Union and the Confederacy cannot be overstated. For the Union, the victory at Gettysburg was a much-needed boost. It bolstered the faith in their cause and their belief in victory. Soldiers and civilians alike began to see the light at the end of the tunnel. For the Confederacy, however, the defeat was a crushing blow. They had suffered significant losses, and their hopes of a swift victory were dashed. The morale among the troops and the civilian population began to wane. The reality of a prolonged conflict began to set in, bringing with it a sense of despair and uncertainty. The Battle of Gettysburg was more than just a military confrontation. It was a test of resilience, of determination, and of the will to fight for what one believes in. It was a testament to the human spirit, to the strength and courage of the men who fought and died on those fields. And it was a stark reminder of the devastating cost of war. The Battle of Gettysburg was a turning point in the Civil War, a moment that defined the struggles and sacrifices of a nation at war with itself. The Battle of Gettysburg was more than just a military conflict. It was a crucible in which the fate of a nation was forged. Now, let us delve into the lessons etched into the annals of history by this monumental battle. First and foremost, Gettysburg underscored the critical importance of strategic planning. Both armies had their own share of victories and losses, and the shifting tides of battle were largely dictated by their strategies. The Confederates were bold, yet their daring approach sometimes led them into costly mistakes. The Union, on the other hand, was more calculated, using the terrain to their advantage, and ultimately, their strategic planning paid off. This brings us to our next lesson: the value of courage and determination. The soldiers on both sides demonstrated immense bravery in the face of daunting odds. They fought not just for their own survival, but for the ideals they believed in. The courage displayed by the Union soldiers at Little Round Top and the determination of the Confederates during Pickett's charge are testament to the human spirit's indomitable will. However, Gettysburg also served as a stark reminder of the devastating costs of war. The town was left in ruins, and the fields were littered with the bodies of the fallen. The 3 days of battle resulted in over 50,000 casualties, making it one of the bloodiest battles in American history. The heartrending sight of such loss poses a question we must all ponder: is the price of conflict too steep? But perhaps the most important lesson from Gettysburg is this: unity is strength. The Union, though battered and bruised, stood united against the onslaught and emerged victorious. Their unity, their collective courage, and their unwavering belief in the cause they fought for was ultimately their saving grace. The echoes of Gettysburg still resonate today, a reminder of the power of unity, courage, and sacrifice. Let these lessons guide us as we navigate the challenges of our own times. 4 months after the battle, President Abraham Lincoln would deliver one of the most famous speeches in American history. The setting was the dedication of the Soldiers' National Cemetery in Gettysburg, a solemn occasion that brought together thousands of citizens who had been touched by the tragedy of the battle. In the midst of this somber gathering, Lincoln rose to speak. His words, though few in number, would echo through the ages, becoming a cornerstone of American identity. His speech, known today as the Gettysburg Address, was a profound reflection on the principles of freedom, democracy, and national unity. Lincoln began by invoking the memory of the nation's founding. He reminded his listeners that America was conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. This was a bold assertion at a time when the nation was torn apart by civil war, a conflict rooted in the question of equality and human rights. The president then shifted his focus to the present, acknowledging the bravery and sacrifice of those who fought at Gettysburg. He declared that the world would little note nor long remember what was said there, but it could never forget what they did. In this statement, Lincoln underscored the significance of actions over words, honoring the soldiers who had given their lives for the cause of freedom. As Lincoln moved towards his conclusion, he turned his gaze to the future. He expressed the hope that the nation under God would have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. This was not just a prediction, but a call to action, urging his listeners to continue the work of those who had fallen at Gettysburg. In his brief but powerful speech, Lincoln captured the essence of the struggle, giving meaning to the sacrifices made at Gettysburg. His words continue to inspire us today, reminding us of the enduring values that define our nation and the responsibilities we bear as its citizens. The Battle of Gettysburg remains a testament to the courage and sacrifice of those who fought there. This 3-day clash, a turning point in the American Civil War, showcased the resilience and determination of the human spirit. We retrace the prelude to the battle, the intense confrontations of each day, and the significant aftermath that left an indelible legacy. We delved into the lessons from Gettysburg, a stark reminder of the cost of division and the power of unity. We relived Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, a speech that continues to echo through the annals of American history, articulating the principles of freedom and equality. As we stand at the end of this journey, the enduring importance of the Battle of Gettysburg in American history is clear. It serves as a symbol of bravery, sacrifice, and the enduring pursuit of a more perfect union. As we remember Gettysburg, we are reminded of our shared history, the sacrifices made, and the lessons that remain as relevant today as they were in 1863.